Princess Leonor's degree revealed the education shaping Spain's future queen. What does a future queen actually need to study? History? Law? Politics? Economics? International relations? Or perhaps something completely different? For Princess Leonor of Spain, the answer matters far beyond choosing a university subject, because she isn't preparing for an ordinary career. She is preparing for a constitutional role that could eventually place her at the center of Spanish public life. Leonor is the heir to the Spanish crown, and that means every stage of her education has attracted extraordinary attention. But there is one part of her academic journey that deserves a closer look: her university education. What is she studying? Why does it matter? And could her academic choices reveal something about the kind of queen she might eventually become? Before we go further, there is an important clarification. Leonor's education has included several stages, including her schooling abroad and her military training. Her university studies are part of a broader preparation rather than a single degree that determines how she will rule. So today, we're not going to pretend that one academic subject can predict her future. Instead, we're going to explore how her education, including her university studies, could equip her for the extraordinary responsibilities waiting ahead. Because the most interesting question isn't simply, what degree is Princess Leonor studying? It's, what is she learning that could matter when she eventually becomes queen? Chapter 1: Leonor's education isn't an ordinary one. Most young people choose university degrees based on personal interests. Some want medicine. Others choose engineering. Some study business. Others choose law, politics, literature, or science. The decision can influence their careers, but eventually, they can change direction. Leonor's situation is different. Her education has been shaped by something much larger than a conventional career plan. She is preparing for the possibility of becoming Spain's head of state. That means she needs a broad understanding of the world. She needs to understand institutions, history, society, international relations, communication, and the responsibilities of constitutional leadership. Her university education is therefore only one part of a much larger preparation. Chapter 2: The Princess of Asturias. Leonor's position as Princess of Asturias gives her a unique constitutional significance. She is first in the line of succession under Spain's constitutional rules. That means her education isn't simply interesting because she's famous. It matters because of the responsibilities she may eventually inherit. Her father, King Felipe VI, has spent years performing the constitutional duties of the crown. Leonor has been able to observe that role from childhood. She has watched him meet presidents. She has watched him receive foreign leaders. She has seen him speak at national ceremonies, and she has gradually begun taking on important public responsibilities herself. Education is another part of that preparation. Chapter 3: Why politics matters. For someone preparing to become a constitutional monarch, understanding politics is extremely useful. But there's an important distinction. A constitutional monarch isn't supposed to become a party politician. The future queen needs to understand political systems without becoming a partisan political actor. That requires knowledge. She needs to understand how governments work, how parliament functions, how laws are created, how elections shape governments, how Spain interacts with European institutions, and how international diplomacy operates. This is why studies related to political science, international relations, law, and economics can be particularly relevant to someone preparing for a constitutional role. Chapter 4: University is only one piece of the puzzle. It's tempting to imagine that Leonor's university degree will somehow teach her how to become queen, but no degree can do that alone. A monarch's education is much broader. Leonor has experienced formal academic education. She has received military training. She has learned languages. She has participated in official events. She has delivered speeches. And she has spent years observing her parents. Each experience teaches something different. A university lecture can teach theory. Military training can teach discipline. Public appearances can teach communication. International visits can teach diplomacy. And family life can teach emotional intelligence. The future queen needs all of these. Chapter 5: The Political Science Connection. If Leonor studies political science or related political subjects, that would be especially relevant to her future. Political science examines how governments and institutions function. It explores power, political systems, public policy, international relations, political behavior, and the relationship between citizens and institutions. For an ordinary student, these are academic subjects. For a future monarch, they could become practical knowledge. Imagine eventually sitting with a government leader and discussing a constitutional issue. The queen doesn't need to be a party politician, but she needs to understand the political environment surrounding her. That's where education becomes preparation. Chapter 6: The future queen needs to understand constitutional law. There is another field that could be extremely important: law. Spain is a constitutional monarchy. That means the crown operates within a legal framework. The Constitution establishes the monarch's position, it establishes succession, it defines constitutional functions, and it places the monarchy within the broader Spanish democratic system. A future queen needs to understand those boundaries, because the most powerful monarch in a constitutional system isn't necessarily the person who does the most. Sometimes, the most important skill is knowing exactly where your authority ends. Leonor will need to understand that. Chapter 7 The lesson of her father King Felipe provides Leonor with a living example of constitutional leadership. He doesn't need to explain everything in a textbook. She can watch. She can observe. She can learn how he behaves with political leaders. She can see how he addresses the public. She can observe how he handles difficult moments. And she can watch how he balances personal emotions with public responsibilities. That's an education no university can completely reproduce. Leonor has effectively grown up inside a constitutional classroom. Chapter 8 Military education. Then comes one of the most unusual parts of Leonor's preparation: military training. As part of her preparation, Leonor has trained within Spain's armed forces. She has experienced different branches and aspects of military life. Why is that important? Because the king has a constitutional role connected to the armed forces. But military education also teaches things that go beyond combat: discipline, leadership, teamwork, responsibility, decision-making, following procedures, performing under pressure. Those qualities could be useful for any future head of state. Chapter 9 The importance of international relations. Spain doesn't exist in isolation. The future queen will have to understand Spain's relationship with Europe, the European Union, Latin America, the Mediterranean, NATO allies, other constitutional monarchies, and countries across the world. This means international relations could be one of the most useful areas of knowledge for Leonor. A monarch regularly participates in diplomatic events, state visits, meetings with foreign leaders, international ceremonies, diplomatic receptions, and global cultural events. The ability to understand another country's interests can be just as important as understanding your own. Chapter 10 Languages and communication. Then there's communication. A future monarch can have the most impressive academic credentials in the world, but if she cannot communicate effectively, those qualifications will not be enough. Leonor has studied languages and has demonstrated her ability to speak publicly. Language is particularly important for diplomacy. Imagine representing Spain in another country, speaking directly to its citizens, meeting its leaders, understanding its culture. Even a short conversation in someone's language can create a powerful diplomatic connection. For a future queen, communication is not simply a skill, it is part of the job. Chapter 11 History matters too. Leonor also needs to understand the institution she may eventually lead, and that means history. The Spanish monarchy has existed in many different forms over centuries. Spain has experienced political transformations, wars, republics, dictatorship, democratic transition, constitutional reform, European integration, modern political change. A future monarch cannot understand today's Spain without understanding how the country arrived here. History can teach Leonor something particularly important: institutions change, and monarchies survive when they understand the societies around them. Chapter 12 The modern monarch's biggest challenge. Perhaps the biggest challenge facing Leonor will be relevance. Young people today interact with institutions differently from previous generations. They live online. They question traditional structures. They demand transparency. They expect public figures to explain themselves. And they can be skeptical of inherited privilege. Leonor will eventually need to connect with this generation. Her education can help. Understanding political science, society, economics, history, and international affairs could allow her to engage intelligently with the problems facing modern Spain. But education alone won't create that connection. She will also need authenticity. Chapter 13 What her degree doesn't teach. There's something important that no university degree can guarantee: character. A person can have brilliant academic qualifications and still be a poor leader. A monarch needs more than knowledge. She needs judgment, patience, self-control, empathy, courage, humility, and the ability to listen. These qualities develop through experience. That's why Leonor's education extends beyond the classroom. Her military training, public duties, family life, travel, international experiences, and interactions with ordinary citizens, all of them contribute to her development. Chapter 14 The pressure of being the heir. Imagine studying for exams while knowing that millions of people are watching your life. Imagine making a mistake and seeing it discussed publicly. Imagine giving a speech and having every word analyzed. That's part of Leonor's reality. Her university years cannot be completely ordinary. Even when she is simply a student, her identity follows her. That's another reason her education matters. She needs not only academic knowledge, she needs resilience. She must learn how to handle pressure, because the pressure of becoming queen will eventually be far greater. Chapter 15 Could her education shape her reign? Absolutely, but not in the simplistic way people sometimes imagine. A degree won't tell us exactly what kind of Queen Leonor will become. It won't predict her political preferences. It won't reveal how she will respond to future crises, and it certainly can't tell us whether her reign will resemble her father's. But education can influence how a leader thinks. It can teach someone to analyze problems, consider different perspectives, understand institutions, recognize historical patterns, and make decisions based on evidence rather than impulse. Those skills could become valuable when Leonor eventually carries constitutional responsibilities. Chapter 16. The woman behind the title. There's another side to Leonor's education that is easy to overlook. She's not only being prepared to be queen, she's also becoming her own person. She has interests, friendships, academic ambitions, personal experiences, and a life beyond ceremonies. That's important, because a future monarch still needs an individual identity. Leonor cannot simply become a copy of Felipe. She cannot simply imitate Letizia. She will eventually have to develop her own style of leadership, her own way of communicating, her own relationship with the Spanish people. Education can help provide the foundation, but the final personality will be uniquely hers. Chapter 17. The degree is only the beginning. So when people ask, what degree will define Princess Leonor's future? Perhaps the better answer is, no single degree will define her. Her future will be shaped by everything she learns. From political science and related academic subjects, to constitutional law, to military training, to international relations, to languages, to history, to the experience of living under public scrutiny. Her university education is important, but it is only one chapter. The real education is much bigger. It's the education of becoming a future head of state. Finally, the education behind the Crown Princess Leonor's academic journey is fascinating because it exists at the intersection of education and destiny. Most university students are preparing for careers. Leonor is preparing for something much harder to define. She is preparing for a constitutional responsibility that could last for decades. Her studies can give her knowledge. Her military training can give her discipline. Her public duties can give her experience. Her family can give her guidance. And her encounters with people from around the world can give her perspective. But ultimately, none of these things guarantees what kind of queen she will become. That will depend on how she uses what she has learned. One day, Leonor may sit on the Spanish throne. She may meet a new generation of political leaders. She may represent Spain during moments of national celebration. She may face crises that nobody can predict today. And when those moments arrive, she won't have a textbook telling her exactly what to do. She'll have to rely on judgment, experience, character, and the education she received throughout her life. That's why her degree matters. Not because one subject can magically teach someone how to rule, but because every serious lesson she learns today becomes part of the foundation for the woman she may become tomorrow. The future queen isn't being prepared in one classroom. She's being prepared everywhere. At university, in military academies, at official ceremonies, during international visits, in front of cameras, and, perhaps most importantly, through the ordinary experiences that help transform a young woman into an adult. So the real question isn't, what degree is Princess Leonor studying? It's, what kind of person is that education helping her become? Because one day, Spain may not simply ask whether Leonor was a good student. It may ask whether she was ready. Ready to represent. Ready to listen. Ready to lead within the Constitution. Ready to remain calm under pressure. And ready to carry a crown that is far heavier than it looks. The degree is only one part of the story. The real education is becoming queen.